Chris Galzer here with
Matt Howell.
On this episode of The First Run, Matt and I are going to discuss Assassination Nation. It's the black comedy thriller that is really not doing anything across this nation. We're also going to discuss the latest in our martial arts marathon, the 36th Chamber of the Shaolin. And then it's going to be the return of everybody's fill-in-the-blanks game, TFR Libs. And I was doing this list, Matt, and I'm trying to, I'm way too superhero-oriented with this kind of stuff. So I threw in a James Bond and a Star Wars question. So, just to balance it out. Anyway, let's try and reclaim a little bit of credibility, maybe. Let's discuss Assassination Nation. But first, here's a clip.
My name is Lily Colson, and I'm 18 years old. These are my three best friends, Em, Bex, and Sarah. And this is the story of how my town, Salem, lost its mind. But let's start at the beginning.
Dude, the principal got hacked.
I'll give him like 5 days before he commits suicide.
I'm sorry, I just don't have any sympathy for people that get hacked.
For real?
There's two types of people in this world. People that have come to terms with privacy is just dead. Then there's the old people that are still trying to fight it.
What do you have to hide anyway, Lil?
A million nudes, super gross porn history, and like super pervy texts about almost everyone at this school.
Me too. Me three.
I think it was some socially conscious vigilante hacker guy.
I live for this type of scandal, to be honest.
That's what I hear about you, Matt, too, that you just live for this type of scandal.
To be honest, I do.
We should talk about, vocal fry, or,
Oh my god, this movie.
All right, so Assassination Nation, as you heard in that clip of the trailer, the town of Salem, everybody's dirty laundry, all their internet stuff is dumped out in the town. Well, not half the town, let's clarify. And basically the town goes absolutely insane about this, and they blame Odessa Young, who plays Lily Colson, and her three friends. They say they are responsible. So the town goes nuts and tries to hunt them down and exact revenge for what they appear as, mistreatment, and that they've been exposed for the people that they really are. So, Matt, this thing is tanking. Nobody is going to see this at the box office. The Rotten Tomatoes score is actually, I think, relatively good, particularly for what I think essentially is a genre film and is almost an exploitation grindhouse film. Mm-hmm. It's popping out at 68%. So I'm just going to tell you, we were going back and forth. We're seeing two films this week, this and White Boy Rick. You didn't get a chance to see My Boy Rick. I did, but we're going to pocket that for a streaming pick later on down the road. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk about Assassination Nation. Matt, I loved this thing.
Did you?
All right, I did. I'm a big fan. This is a primal scream of outrage and vengeance against the misogyny. This thing covers so many different things, right? So it's basically a modern genre retelling of the Salem Witch Trials, combined with female oppression, misogyny, transphobia, hypocrisy, mob violence, the internet age, all of this stuff that we're able to, I would say the director and writer Sam Levinson, son of Barry, is able to neatly kind of pack together in this thing. I was really impressed by this. I'm telling you, I was a little concerned in the beginning, but there are, I think, flashes of brilliance in this thing. And I think that this really is a film of its time and demands to be seen. And I know you are going to agree with me entirely.
You're wrong. I'm not going to agree with you entirely. So I will say this. I do agree with you entirely in saying that Levinson tries to pack in a breadth of issues. He tries to address quite a few things, but where I'll challenge you is I don't believe I would take issue with the word neatly packaged. I think it's kind of rambling, and I don't think he knows exactly where the subject of his ire is, because it basically, the focus of this thing seems to flow and change and meld, and where he starts off in the beginning with what he's trying to say is completely different than where he ends up. And I don't know if it's completely successful.
Absolutely not. It's This thing, there is one key boogeyman throughout this entire thing, and it's the patriarchy of the country. Now, let's not get too political involved with this thing, but that is the core of all of this. It's how women, particularly young girls, are expected to be, how to look, how to act, and what's expected of them, and how what men can get away with, they cannot. So and it's just about then finally just pushing back on this. I really feel this is like a hypothetical, kind of allegorical, tyrannic. I don't know. I can't think of any other words in Iggle, but it's really just a fantasy version of what could and maybe should happen right now.
Well, again, I really got to disagree with you there. I agree with what you're saying for the second half of the film. Okay, so when Lily gets quote unquote exposed as the source of the hack, I believe everything you're saying fits to the T of the movie. But that's the second half of the movie. The beginning half of the movie is about how these four girls are just as bad as everybody else, insofar as they have no sympathy for the people who are victims, except the mayor, because obviously I understand like what they're trying to do with, but the refrain is, and Lily is really the only one who has any sympathy for the principal either, which is even addressed as something that's not even that bad. It's kind of like a puritanical reaction from the town at large. So really one of the key things, and if you watch this movie, I think one of the key things, and the girls are just as bad about this as everybody else, is the constant refrain of, but I'm a good person. That goes through. All of them say that. All four of them say that. The town all says that. And I think Chris is absolutely right insofar as what the message of the film becomes in the second half once Lily is exposed. But I don't see how he kind of just basically switches. It's like, okay, I'm done with this first half of the film. Just forget everything that I just told you and the groundwork that I laid, which I thought was an interesting film in and of itself. It's just a tonal whiplash. Like, it's like, forget everything that I just laid, and now we're going to go with this.
It's weird because I see those all the beginning of the film just as building blocks to bring to that point. I think everything is interconnected. The how they handle the trans violence as well, and the transphobia, dealing with why am I blanking on the young lady's name? Hari Neff. The Carrie's name is Bex. Yeah. So I think everything is tied in from the very beginning. I think it's more it's the seed is planted with that, and how that's kind of how, and again, just with the use of the name of the town, how the Salem Witch Trials thing all started.
Subtle
and how you had to come up with a reason for it. Well, what's the most obvious one? Well, it's got to be these women. So I don't know. I don't have the same hang up with you with this beginning of the film that you do. I think everything, all the seeds are planted, and I think everything nicely comes together at the end of the.
I think it's unfair to say it's a hang up. I think I would just challenge your assertion that's brilliant. Not.
There are flashes of brilliance in this thing. Okay. I think the use of the tracking, technically, the tracking shot at the house, I thought was exceptionally well done.
Yeah, that is an awesome piece of little technique. I was like wondering, I had to take that and look that up early or later, because people will do tricks of these kind of one-shot takes where they kind of digitally seem, put in the edits, but I guess it's actually legit. So I was actually pretty impressed with that.
And then the Levinson's use of color in this, and the score as well. The triple shot scenes, right, when we have the three scenes where you see what the people are doing all at the same time at the exact moment. There's a little technical things I thought were well done as well, and just the overall narrative and how we're able to tackle the trans issues, the hypocrisy, the mob violence, the end of privacy in the internet age, all the misogyny. I think he does a good job with all of that. If I have any issue with the film, for me, it's maybe more the end of it. I think I struggle with how Levinson kind of, how do I put it? It's too compacted. I think he tries to tackle too many wide range things that are impacting this country and this planet. And then the revolt is too confined to basically this one street. I mean, metaphorically and literally. I feel it's too focused on this one thing. And I think the impact and the outrage, the roar, and the vengeance should have had a larger impact. Now, I know it's basically suggested by the film and how Lily Colson does that little video message for people to motivate them to stand up. And the film, the way the film ends is when they're all backed up by the other women in the town. And I think you're led to believe that maybe it'll have a domino effect throughout. But still, I just think a film that tries to encapsulate all these large things becomes suddenly very small to me at the very end. And that's like really the only nitpick I think I have with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I agree with you that it seems kind of like he ran out of time and he kind of had to put this thing a neat bow on this thing.
Right.
And I think, of the four principals, I think obviously Lily is by far the standout of this. The Lacey twins, Suki Waterhouse, and the other lady, I don't know her name, but they're basically ciphers. They just exist just to kind of round out the quadrology, but they're not really characters in and of themselves.
You know what? I'm going to interrupt you for a second because I know you're entirely right about that. The other two characters, which are Abra and Suki, really I felt were they were caricatures. They were very thinly made. There was really no depth to them at all. The focus really is Lily and Bex. So that's another exceptionally fair critique of this film is that he underserves the other two female leads in this thing for absolute surety. Surety? For sure.
For sure. And you know what? I'm not saying this is a bad film at all. I wouldn't say. I think it's a very good. I'll temper that. It's a good film with a lot of interesting things to say. I just wish it was not quite so over the place. I think he tries to hit a lot of targets, and I think that's a bit of a detriment. Although I commend the attempt. And that's really my only criticism of the film.
Fair enough.
Besides the other ones with the ending and the two principles. So those are my three criticisms of the film.
So I feel like this is a great, as I said, encapsulation of basically what's going on in the country, the Me Too movement, all this stuff is, I think, pretty well done. And if you don't mind some hyper violence and gore, and you like kind of an exploitation film with a bit of a moral message, then I think this is the way to go. I think that this is a cinematic indictment, basically, of female and transgender oppression. And for me, I gave it an A-, Matt. What did you come down with finally?
I would say it is an indictment not only of trans issues and misogyny, but also I would say kind of the internet age and kind of our cruelty to each other. And to be 100% honest with you, be prepared that these four women are just as bad at the beginning of the film as everybody else, and I think that's an interesting way to start it off with. Anyway, I would give this. I'm going to give it a B.
Okay.
I think it has some issues. It's still a good film. It's worth checking out if it's in your wheelhouse, but it's got its flaws.
I think that's fair. All right. If you've had a chance to see Assassination Nation, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Matt, coming up on Blu-ray and DVD, I should say, this upcoming Tuesday, October 2nd. Let's hear a clip from, I guess, the big release, I guess. I don't hear.
Those men are Yemeni. We have nothing to do with that. Your fight is with ISIS, not me. All my fights are on water.
They sure are, Bashir. In Yemen? Just across the Gulf. What a coincidence. It's kind of tricky for a Yemeni nationalist to book an international flight these days. So if their passports were fake, they'd fly it straight to Kansas City instead of going to Mexico and hiring coyotes to truck them 100 miles to the desert, right? So the big question is, how'd they get to Mexico? Because they sure as hell didn't fly. No, they traveled by ship. A ship you didn't try and steal, so that means someone paid you not to. So here's my only question, Bashir. Who paid you to let the ship through?
Says Josh Brolin in Sicario, Day of the Soldado, the sequel to the fantastic film Sicario,
Fantastic.
directed by Denis Villeneuve. And that is, I think, I hesitate to say potentially a modern classic. It is, I think, that good. So the sequel, though,
Not so much.
not so much. So Best Buy has given us a steelbook with that, and there's 3 making of featurettes on the film. Another film, Matt, that I think we were both, I think it's safe to say, disappointed by. The First Purge is being released as well. Includes a deleted scene and 3 making ofs. A film that I didn't get to see that I hear is excellent, that I want us to work in at some point in the next couple months, maybe at some point in November. Leave No Trace.
Okay.
It stars Ben Foster as Will. He has a teenage daughter named Tom, and they've lived off the grid for years in the forests of Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
When their idyllic life is shattered, both are put into social services. And I don't want to say too much because something happens, somebody makes a decision, and everything goes horribly wrong. And it's supposed to be fantastic.
Yeah, I've heard good things.
Yeah, so I want to check that out. Includes a couple making of featurettes and some deleted scenes. A sequel that I had no idea was coming out, but it's here. Tales from the Hood, Part 2. Executive produced by Spike Lee, and brings back the original writers and directors and producers of the original film as well. Keith David stars as the contemporary Mr. Sims to tell blood-curdling stories of lust, greed, pride, and politics. I love me some Keith David. I don't know if I've ever actually seen the original Tales from the Hood from start to finish. I think I've seen like bits of it over time, but
okay, it's been a long time.
So yeah, but the part 2 is being released. A documentary that's supposed to be quite good, 3 Identical Strangers, is being released. It's the twisty story of identical triplets separated at birth who reconnect by chance at age 19. But what starts as a happy reunion sets off the series of events that lead to shocking and sinister secrets. We should try and work this one in too, Matt. I don't know if you've seen it, but I hear it is also quite good.
It is one I did want to check out that I didn't get a chance to, so I do want to see it.
And then Bloodfest. Fans flock to a festival celebrating the most iconic horror movies, only to discover that the charismatic showman behind the event has a diabolical agenda. I'm nervous because I think at some point next week, or actually I should say this week, the missus is going out of town, and I was thinking of going to Universal Studios horror and haunted horror nights thing.
Ooh!
And now I don't know if I want to go because what if something really nefarious
Between
is going
Bloodfest and Hellfest, it's just fests are just not something you want to go to.
The house that Halloween built, right? There's that one as well. So I don't know. Is it all right to go to that by myself? Because I have no one to go.
Yeah, I'm going to be in Florida, but I'm not going to be in Orlando next week. I'll be there the week after, so even I can't go with you.
Story of my life. New to Blu-ray, Criterion is releasing The Naked Prey. Glamorous leading man turned idiosyncratic auteur Cornel Wilde created in the 60s and 70s a handful of gritty, violent explorations of the nature of man. None more memorable than The Naked Prey. Includes a restored high-definition digital transfer, audio commentary ported over from 2007 from a prior release with film scholar Stephen Prince, and a bunch of other featurettes. And then finally, Matt, getting released on 4K for the first time, Step Brothers. Your straight-to-DVD pick of the week is The Legend of Halloween Jack. Tell me if this sounds familiar at all to you.
Okay.
A sleepy seaside town in England is about to learn the true meaning of vengeance. As the residents gear up for the annual Halloween celebration, little do they know that their seemingly perfect town masks a guilty secret. 1 year earlier, a group of vigilantes took matters into their own hands when the notorious criminal Jack Kane escaped conviction. After torturing and killing Kane, they buried his body in the local cornfield and made a pact to never speak his name again. Now, on the day when the veil between the living and the dead is thinnest, a mysterious apparition begins stalking the land and dishing out brutal retribution to the vigilante group. So begins the legend of Halloween Jack. Now, maybe if we just say that Jack was in an abandoned warehouse and a bunch of people threw a bunch of Molotov cocktails and set it on fire and burned him alive, and then he came back to kill people, maybe it'll be known as something else. The straight-to-DVD pick of the week, though, Legends of Halloween Jack. Matt, what should we be streaming this week?
All right, so kind of in the spirit of our modern grindhouse film, as well as our kung fu marathon that we've been working on, or martial arts marathon, I'm going to recommend 2 kind of spoofy tributes or homages, loving homages to the blaxploitation era of film. First, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker is available on Amazon Prime. It's written by the Wayans. It's actually a pretty solid late 80s, early 90s send up of blaxploitation films. And coming back to streaming, first run, absolute favorite, available October 1st, Black Dynamite. It's going to be available on Netflix. It is chef's kiss beautiful. If you have not seen it, make that a 1-2 punch, but end on a high note with Black Dynamite.
If there's a official first run pantheon, Black Dynamite is in it. I mean,
it is. It is.
That's like Drive, Black Dynamite. What else?
Wolf Cop.
Wolf.
Hey, we got a shout out on Wolf Cop.
That's true.
We did.
We still got to check out Wolf Cop 2 too.
We do.
So we got a lot to get to. All right, Matt. Thanks for that pick. Man, BD's coming back. All right. Man, I'm telling you, people, I laughed so hard at that thing, I cried. All right? It is that funny.
We went and saw that. Me and Chris went and saw that. And Michael J. White was in the theater that we saw in Bloomfield because he's from Bloomfield, Connecticut. And when I was watching it, I look over and Chris is watching just to see how much I am enjoying it from a couple seats down, creepily just watching me as I sit there and watch this movie. And it was that good.
Like Jack Nicholson in The Departed. Just like,
basically, yeah. You're enjoying this, aren't you?
Good times. All right. Let's move on, Matt, and let's talk about the next film in our martial arts marathon. The cult classic. Wu-Tang is all about these guys. Or I should say all about this film, right? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about why. I don't know if we'll get into that. Here's a clip from the 36th Chamber of the Shaolin.
The Buddha tells us that in the great infinity beyond all the nothings is the emptiness of the eternal five. Sight, sound, smell, feel. The five flavors dull all the taste. The five tones deafen every ear. The five colors, they all blind the eye. But they do not pass. They are all eternal. All things come to us. Without doubt. Without wisdom, no gain. Yet gain must end. All men will be one. For there lies true peace. And happiness, too. It is invisible and inaudible. And quite infinite. And you all hear the sound of bells. Emptiness is sound. We hear nothing.
Matt, so why don't you tell everybody at home, what is the 36th Chamber of the Shaolin all about?
Sure. So Liu, participates in a uprising against the Manchu government with his village, and that does not go well for Liu and his compatriots. So he flees to the Shaolin temple to seek refuge. God, if I could see.
You'll get there.
I'll get there. Where he basically learns kung fu. And then masters the 35 chambers, and he decides that he's going to create a 36th chamber, which is teach the lay person how to defend themselves with kung fu. And he goes back to seek revenge, as all these movies are. All these movies are all about revenge at some point.
Yeah, I think that's an issue, right? So unlike when the last film, what's the Street Fighter, which I think had an actually new and interesting story. We seem to be, this is the third time we've seen this story now in this marathon. Mm-hmm. But still, first off, ignorant people, not me, but ignorant people may recognize Gordon Liu as the head of the Crazy 88s. And he also played Pai Mei in the Kill Bill movies. Or as I like to call him, Chinese Yul Brynner. Because he looks like Yul Brynner.
He does look like Yul Brynner.
Or maybe...
Or Yul Brynner looks like him.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Although I think Yul Brynner is older than Gordon Liu, so I guess we would have to go the other way around, right?
Fair enough. But the story of Santai, which I guess this is a fictionalized version of a guy who really existed. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So he has to fight the oppressive. Now, again, I'm not up on my history. Is this a Chinese government, or is this an invading Japanese group? Or
No, it's from what I'm not a super into Chinese history either, but I believe it's part of the Manchu dynasty. So it's basically the Chinese government.
Okay, good to know. Let me tell you though, I think I have found my absolute favorite training montage of all time.
Oh, really?
And this is it's over a third. Is it 40% of the film? Really, is him going through these 35 chambers. Right. And it is fascinating stuff.
I know, right?
It is really well done. And another big plus for this one is the fight scenes. I think the fight choreography in this one is quite good.
Yeah, it is.
I think it may even be more advanced than I think anything we've seen up to this point, even more so than the dirty and gritty violence and gore of the Street Fighter. This one is, I think, much more. It's exceptional, really.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So, but yeah, I don't know. I really, really enjoyed this one as well, Matt. It's again, it may be a plot that we've seen a few times now, but the improved martial arts fight choreography, the story was more interesting, the training montage, if you will. Fascinating. I think I may have a new king of the marathon. What are your thoughts?
Really? This is your king of the marathon, huh?
I don't know. I really enjoyed the 35 prior chambers
until I got to the 36.
Yeah, and then you got the Chinese Freddie Mercury, who's a general bad guy of the whole thing. Though I don't quite get why nobody seems to bother to be able to grow sideburns.
Yeah. Well, what's the style?
All right. So, but still. I loved Sentei's path in this thing.
Yeah.
It was just a fun journey to go on with him, and just it's at times a little goofy, but it's never not a lot of fun.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, this is considered a classic action film. It's really kind of laying the groundwork for what became like the Wuxia films with all the wire work and stuff like that. And it's nowhere near as elaborate as that. Mm-hmm. But it is much more of a fluid, dancey style kind of choreographed fight scenes. Whereas like Street Fighter and Bruce Lee's films, while heavily choreographed, are also a lot dirtier, I guess you would say. Mm-hmm. This seems a lot more ballet-like, and it's really interesting to watch. And as Chris said, I mean, it's got some great training scenes, just one after the other, of just kind of the stuff that he has to go through to these 35 chambers. But kind of one thing that Chris did mention, and I would say this is true in the vein as we talked about last week, this is still kind of that Saturday morning cartoon kind of feel like the Five Venom was, but done much, much better.
Oh, it's not as cartoony, I think, as
it's not as cartoony, but it's also not as... It's not as kind of dirty as Fist of Fury or Street Fighter at the same time.
Well, Street Fighter is a whole different level of dirty. I mean, that's a grindhouse film, really. Yeah, this is much more mainstream than that. This would be a Saturday morning, at 10 o'clock on Channel 56 out of Boston type of martial arts film.
Sure.
That's what this is. Yeah, no. This is not a USA Up All Night or no.
No?
No. But
I'm surprised your love of grindhouse, pulpy, trashy cinema has displaced Street Fighter. I was expecting that to be number one going at the end of all this.
I think I'm not 100%. I think right now I'm on the contact high of the 35 chambers.
Okay,
I think is what it is. I wonder if in retrospect, when we sit down and do our marathon awards, we choose our best actor, the best film, best fight scene, kind of all that stuff, that maybe Street Fighter will eventually win out. Though we're still going to do the Five Fingers of Death, which is our last one. And then, of course, the coda, the aperitif, the palate cleanser, or the shot for the chaser, whatever it is, of the Dragon Lives Again, where he fights Dracula and James Bond, will be, kind of after that. But still, I don't know. I enjoyed it, Matt. I'm going back and forth on this. Right now, I'm sitting at... I don't know. I'm like an A minus. I can't decide.
Yeah.
I think A. Maybe A minus because, again, the story we've seen 3 times now.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think this is an A minus film. Really the marathon we've had so far, I think you really can't go wrong with 3 out of the 4. Now, granted, I Five Venoms, I think, has so far been the weakest one we've seen, but
Easily.
at the same time, I had never seen that one before, so I count that as a punt, as a mulligan, because I wasn't sure. Yeah, I think this is a fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, you just got to do yourself a favor. If you like action movies, it's just something you have to see. It's just part of the canon of action movies.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic, and I can't recommend it highly enough. I agree with you. All right, A- is across the board for the 36th Chamber of the Shaolin. Do we want to at some point see the sequel? From what I understand, it's supposed to be more comical.
Yeah,
yeah.
I've never seen it, but I've heard it's much more slapsticky. So we can check it out.
See, I don't know. Do I want? I'd like. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, and see, I've never seen any of the Street Fighter sequels either, so I kind of wonder how those are going to be as well. Do we go through a sequelitis? We maybe go through our marathons and we pick some sequels if they have them.
That's not a bad idea.
One from each marathon.
Yeah, we'll have to think about that. I like that idea. All right. If you've seen the 36th Chamber of the Shaolin, shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Of course.
All
right, so coming up, it's going to be the return of TFR Libs, which is our favorite fill in the blank game. I got 3 that are... Now, the more I look at them, the more I'm underwhelmed. But we'll make it work because we are professionals. So let's go ahead and hear a clip from something that drove me absolutely mad.
It's funny. All that excitement in Mexico City rang a distant bell. And now, suddenly, this evening, it makes perfect sense. Welcome, James. It's been a long time. But finally, here we are. What took you so long? Cuckoo.
Yeah, so that is from Spectre, when it was revealed that Ernst Stavro Blofeld was actually James Bond's stepbrother, just adopted brother, whatever it was.
Sure.
When they had that trailer, again, I know I say this every time, but when that trailer, I said, if they make him like his long-lost brother or something, I am going to walk out of that damn movie. Now,
Did you walk out?
No, of course not. But still, it drove me crazy. There was no reason to do that. None. Stupid. Anyway, TFR Libs, fill in the blank. Danny Boyle has dropped out of the James Bond film. They announced last week that they've hired Cary Joji Fukunaga, who did True Detective.
Yes.
And also, Beasts of the Wilderness? What is it called? Nope, I'm forgetting it now. The Netflix film with Idris Elba about the African child soldiers.
No, I don't know. I don't know what that is.
It's really good.
Okay. We like it. We don't know what it is, but we like it.
He's directing Bond 25.
Okay.
So, hiring Cary Joji Fukunaga to direct Bond 25 is...
a solid gamble. Cary Fukunaga, his episodes of True Detective, he didn't do them all, but he did by far the best one. And we were talking about earlier in the show, kind of a single tracking shot. Mm-hmm. There is a shootout shot in one of his episodes that is absolutely fantastic. And he has done some other episodes of TV that they've been consistently interesting. So I'm glad that they're taking a chance. I mean, it's something that we can kind of, I'm really interested to see what he can do with it, because I think he's got a good style all of his own. And you know what? No disrespect to Danny Boyle, he's a big director or anything like that, but I'm kind of happy they're giving it to some more of an untested property for the Bond film. I think it's a good place to cut your teeth.
See, I don't know. I think hiring him to direct Bond 25. I like your answer. It's a solid gamble. I think it's initially I'm like, oh, that's an inspired choice. Mm-hmm. But now I'm leaning more towards subtle disappointment. Because we've gone this route before. Mark Forster, right? We brought in, and then prior to that, what was it, Sam Mendes?
Right.
At what point can we get an action director? Can we get a Chris McQuarrie? Can we get a, who am I thinking? I just had it and it slipped my mind. Gareth Evans from the Ray films.
Right.
I would like to see old school, like Guy Hamilton, who directed like a bunch of the old Bond films with Connery. You know, why can't we get a seasoned action director into this thing? What about the guy who did John Wick? You know, I mean, obviously not to that level of violence, I would say, but still, part of me thinks maybe at some point I'd like for an action director to get his hands on this franchise and just deliver a pulse-pounding, kick-butt Bond film.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they don't do it. I don't know if I think they're maybe just too scared of, like, you know, repeating something that's already been done kind of thing, maybe?
But we haven't had one yet with Craig, right? I don't think, Casino Royale, I guess, was close to having a real action-y director because he had done GoldenEye and Martin Campbell, and he'd done the Zorro film, I guess. But still, I just want one of these guys to get his hands in that toy box and then just go nuts. Just once. You know,
maybe it's Craig. Maybe he likes to work with auteurs. And then the next Bond we get, Idris Elba will make his own choices of who it will be.
I don't know. I don't know if maybe it's stop trying to chase legitimacy or Oscar bait, I guess, and then just
embrace what it is and just kind of go all out and go that way. And let the people love you. Is our love not enough kind of thing?
Exactly. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. What you got?
All right. So obviously we've talked about it many times today with the Me Too movement, the stuff that's going on with the Supreme Court, all kinds of stuff going on. Now, this is not a person or an individual who, well, I guess it was. I mean, he did have some accusations against him by his ex-wife or girlfriend of his abusive behavior, but Mel Gibson has been given the reins to direct a remake of The Wild Bunch, one of the greatest westerns ever made. Sam Peckinpah's maybe quite possibly late career masterpiece. So Mel Gibson directing The Wild Bunch is blank.
Unnecessary. If we're gonna go ahead and remake it, we already had to suffer through our boys. What's his name there? Remake of The Magnificent Seven, Antoine Fuqua.
Well, you can say what you want about Gibson, but at the very least, he's a better director than Antoine Fuqua. So let's just go ahead and let's set that out there.
What I'm saying, though, if we're gonna remake this thing, we got to be able to find somebody else maybe who could do it. I haven't heard anything about whether he's going to star in it. Is he, or is he just directing?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't heard. I hope not. I haven't heard anything about it because I think that would be instant death for the movie. I've just not enjoyed anything that he's. It's been very rare, but he's just not doing it for me as an actor anymore, for many reasons.
No, it's unnecessary. If you're going to do this, you can bring somebody else in to do it. You know, what would be awesome to see? Maybe like Eastwood's version of that.
Sure.
His interpretation, one more Western out the gate.
Yeah,
but what is it, the 1517, the Paris ever was? Good God.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully he would use real actors and not actual cowboys and outlaws. Anyway, so it's unnecessary. That's my answer. Yeah. I think he's got too much baggage. I'm with you at this point. There's options.
Yeah,
there are other options out there.
Yeah, I don't know what other options I would put in there. I would definitely say it's a mistake, just by the fact of you're trying to remake something that is a classic of the genre, which I think is completely unnecessary. I mean, even when it's done really well for the most part, even like a True Grit, that still kind of was felt unnecessary at the same time. But with his baggage and everything else, and just kind of the legacy of the film, I think it's a mistake. I don't think they should be doing it at all. But even if they were going to do it, they could get somebody else. I don't know who. I mean, I don't know if the Coen brothers or Tarantino or somebody, just anybody else to do this would be interesting to do it.
I would be interested in a Coen brothers remake. I think that'd be fun. Or McQuarrie just off Fallout. I think he's maybe focused on maybe a Rebecca Ferguson, Ilsa Faust film, but still, anybody else? Cary Fukunaga. I don't.
Maybe he gets freed up. Maybe he frees himself up. Yeah.
Matt, Kathleen Kennedy has signed up for another 3 years to continue to run Lucasfilms as part of the partnership with Disney. So her re-signing for another 3 years is
fine. I really don't know what else to say about that. So, there seems to be a lot of divisiveness, and I've come to the conclusion that, and it really disappoints me, that Star Wars fandom really is the worst fandom in the world. It is just absolutely toxic and atrocious, and everybody's just a bunch of petulant children. I belong to some Facebook groups that are Star Wars related. I've been on Reddit for some Star Wars groups, and they're just awful. I mean, not even compared to like the Star Trek groups that I'm in, those guys they're whiny nerds, but they're not awful. I mean, these guys are just bad, and I don't know. I mean, I like what they're doing in some instances of the Star Wars universe, but another 3 years, how many more movies can they get out of her, or how much more can she shepherd? So we'll see. Maybe it's really just to kind of tie off the last bit of what they've already got in the hopper.
So are they going to say they've said they're going to slow down on the films too, right?
Right, they have. Bob Iger said is maybe 1 a year, 2 a year is too many.
So what about? So we're going to get Boba? Are we still going to get a Boba Fett film?
I hope not. I don't really want one. No, not really interested. I'm not super interested.
Being limited and mysterious.
Yeah, I don't know really what they could do with that. I'm not even super stoked for an Obi-Wan movie. What I'd like them to do, really, other than Episode 9, I'd like them to start doing something kind of from whole cloth.
Which is
something
Johnson's
new.
trilogy, right? So.
Right, yeah. Or even if they were going to do some one-offs, instead of being focused on Boba Fett, maybe it's like a crime story. More, I don't know, something about the underworld more than Solo was or anything like that. Something that's completely unconnected. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. What do you got for me?
All right, so...
I don't think I answered, did I?
No, you didn't.
So I think her setting up I agree with you. It's fine. I think personally, she's done a fantastic job shepherding this franchise instead of where it was, which was basically inert, right? And then we had the prequels, which I think you don't still acknowledge exist.
No, I don't.
But the return, though, right? And with Abrams' film and Johnson's film, and then Rogue One was good. Solo was fun. I think she's done a great job. So you know what? I'm on board. Let's keep it going. Let's see what else we come up with. I'm fine. So I'm glad she did.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right. So the trailer for X-Men Dark Phoenix dropped. And to be quite honest with you, it looks actually pretty good. I'm actually surprised. This is probably the first X-Men film since Days of Future Past that I've been excited to see. I think I'm cautiously hopeful. But with the purchase of Fox by Disney Marvel Juggernaut, I want to ask you this, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel will keep blank from the X-Men universe. Sony's or Fox's X-Men universe.
So you're saying what characters are they going to withhold?
What characters are, like, what actors they're going to keep. What they would try and keep as those characters. And just assume Deadpool's a given. Take Ryan Reynolds out of this.
Okay, so I still don't think I grasp what you're saying. So are they not going to let Professor X come over, or they're not going to let James McAvoy come over?
Like they wouldn't. Are they going to try? If they were going to try and pursue some of those actors who play the X-Men characters, like Fassbender or McAvoy or Lawrence, who would never do it, but which ones do you think that they should try and keep? Which ones would you like them to keep, as far as if they weren't going to go from whole cloth?
From Fox? The Fox would hold on to?
No, that Marvel would bring over into the MCU.
Oh, jeez. I'll get there eventually. Everybody, I've been underwhelmed by basically every X-Men film since the second one. I mean, First Class was okay. And then Days of Future Past, all right, it was fine. But I have no connection or devotion to any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So bring it all in. Blow up Fox's ownership of that stuff. I mean, we're getting a Morbius film, right, with Leto next year or something?
Yeah, we are. Woo!
So no, I know I love to. Have you seen that thing online where I guess now Fassbender's Magneto and why am I blanking on his name?
Ian McKellen's.
Ian McKellen's Magneto.
Yeah.
Supposedly in the timeline are 5 years apart.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So those must be some hard 5 years.
That's a really tough 5 years.
So anyway, I don't know. Nothing. I have nothing. I would even bring in Deadpool if you could. I just don't think they'd have the guts to make that film again. That I think if you were to go to Disney proper, you're not going to see the Deadpool films we've been seeing.
Mm.
So I guess hold on to Venom because we know that's going to be awesome. But I don't know. I don't think so. And I think it's interesting. I was actually kind of underwhelmed by the Dark Phoenix trailer.
Were you?
I'm concerned we have another X-Men Apocalypse on our hands. I really do. But
it looks better than X-Men Apocalypse. Looks head and shoulders better.
It looks better, but I don't know if it's going to be better. It's just I don't know.
Enough.
I have no connection or dedication to any of these characters, so I have no issue with them all going over to Marvel.
And just recasting the whole thing over.
Yeah, I don't. I don't need Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, and I don't think she even wants to do it anymore.
No, she doesn't.
They keep shoehorning her in because she's such a big star.
Right.
I mean, maybe. I guess it would be. Am I connected to McAvoy as Char? No. I can see that recast. Fassbender as Magneto. No, I'm all right with that. No, there's no iconic. Listen, if we can go through 4 or 5 Batmans in my lifetime, I can recast the X-Men.
All right. Well, there you go. Well, it's interesting. I'll just point out a couple things that I lost one train of thought, so it was a good one, and I wish I could remember what it is. Maybe I will. But McAvoy, he's actually, the Picard prequel.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying that he would be willing to do it because to kind of do the continuation of him playing Patrick Stewart kind of thing.
Actually, know who it would be? I got one. It would be Hugh Jackman, but he's done.
He's done. So. He is done. He's super done. Yeah, I think there's some good actors. There's actually some solid actors in the X-Men universe, and it's a shame. But I think you're right. I think they just kind of got to blow it up. I would say no one. They keep no one from the MCU. Oh, and this is what it was. So did you hear about how the PG-13 cut of Deadpool 2 that's coming out this Christmas?
It's supposed to be like some kind of Princess Bride thing.
They've seen some stills, and basically the raunchy parts or the parts that are too violent for it to be PG-13 are going to cut to kind of like a frame story where it's Deadpool telling a story, reading a bedtime story to Fred Savage in a bear shirt, just like in the Princess Bride.
Are you gonna pay money to see that in the theater? Well, you got that A-list now, so why not? Right?
Yeah, you know what? I might. I've got A-list. I can see, whatever it is, 12 movies a month. So, I just might do that.
Man. All right. Maybe I'll join you. We'll see. All right, Matt, I got my last one for you.
Okay, go.
I didn't freak out about this because I'm not that dedicated to this stuff, but I was like, what the what?
Mm-hmm.
Henry Cavill is out. Henry Cavill being out as Superman is
concerning. Let's just say that. I will say I don't understand what DC is trying to do here. If they're trying to create this kind of expanded universe, right, and the whole foundation of these things, what Marvel did, and the part of the allure is that you have the same characters, the same actors playing the same characters in all these films, and everything's interconnected. So now they've lost their Batman. We'll just go ahead and say Affleck's out, right? Mm-hmm. They're losing their Superman for their extended universe. Really, Gal is the only solid part where we have yet to see how Aquaman's going to go. I'm a little more confident when I watch the trailer on the big screen, so maybe the latest one that I saw would have been part of the movie I just saw. We'll see, but I don't know.
How many times can you watch Momoa yell, yeah!
My man!
So, I don't know. All right.
So, I mean, it's very concerning. I mean, honestly, what I would love to see them do, I think they should just say, we made good effort, A for effort, guys. let's just scrap this DCEU thing. Let's just make some standalone films, stick with Gal, and then try again in a few years after the bad taste has left everybody's mouth.
First off, it's a D for effort, all right? Not an A for effort.
I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt here.
And I think that Cavill out of Superman is a contract play.
You think
he
so?
wants, I guess, a big payday for a little cameo in Shazam. And let's put it this way. Cavill could be a fantastic Superman. He has not been given good scripts or films to work on. He has been given substandard material. He has been impacted by what he's had to do. There are moments in Man of Steel where he absolutely nails it. But again, he's even underserved by his own movie. I think he talks in that thing a total of 20 minutes, and it's like 2.5 hours long. So it's just, I don't know. I think, though, my hope, I guess, is that it's a contract ploy. That Henry Cavill out of Superman is a contract ploy. And that he will come, because he posted a little thing on Instagram, like 2 hours, 3 hours or later that day, of him holding up a Superman toy. Right. So I don't know if I'm hoping it's all just contract BS. And then it was announced this weekend that Zack Snyder in his DCEU Ultimate Long plans that he was going to kill off Affleck as Batman at some point.
Right.
So I'm curious on when that would have been. I guess he'd have to, because if everything had worked out and everything was great, Affleck would have been too old at some point.
Right.
So they would have had to have reckoned with that, and I guess that would have been the plan. But I don't know. Oh, do you know the other thing too, that the Robin costume in BVS is Dick Grayson?
Oh, it is? The dead one is Dick Grayson?
It's Dick. It's not Todd.
You can't kill Dick Grayson. You can kill Jason Todd, and then he gets better, and that's how the story goes.
You're gonna rob us of Nightwing?
Seriously, you cannot. He replaced Batman when Bruce Wayne went missing. God, I don't understand these people. They don't even understand what's going on.
Nope. You got any more? That's it.
Yeah, one more. So you alluded to it. Jared Leto playing Morbius. We got Venom coming up. So Sony's Spider-Man villain shared universe minus Spider-Man will be a blank.
Just ridiculous. I don't. Supposedly, I was reading today that Ruben Fleischer directed Venom. Said, "Well, we couldn't use Spider-Man, and it didn't work out. That's why he doesn't have a Spider-Man emblem on his chest. But it's also because of how we introduced Carnage, which just makes no sense. It's I don't how you introduce all these great villains, but not without the protagonist that makes them great.
Right?
I don't understand. It's dumb.
Yeah, I mean the entire Venom exists just because of his hatred of Spider-Man, because Brock hated Spider-Man and the symbiote hates Spider-Man, and that's why they exist. Like, I don't understand. It's like you just take away, it's like you have Batman without his parents being killed kind of thing. Like, it's suddenly, that's the whole crux and foundation of this guy's story. I don't get it, what they're doing here. Honestly, I kind of just, I know Sony Pictures is in trouble. I kind of want them just to sell the rights back. Just sell the rights back, guys, and just cut your losses.
Are we all really interested in a Lex Luthor film that's got nothing to do with Superman?
The Legion of Doom. The Legion of Doom film, but none of the Justice League are allowed to come.
Whatever. All right. So those are your libs, folks. Mm-hmm. How would you fill in dem blanks? Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Next week, Matt. Okay, next week, I'm not even sure where to begin for next week. So, it is going to be Mandy. We are doing what's supposed to be the most insane film of the year, Nicolas Cage, where the love of his life was, I believe, murdered by a cult, and he is seeking vengeance. And it is supposed to be an absolute... I think we're supposed to take drugs before we watch it, is what I've been told.
I'll try and go find some.
So we'll see what we can do. I'm in Tampa. I'm sure I can find something somewhere.
You should be able to walk down the block and be fine.
So we're going to do that, and then we're going to wrap up the marathon with our 5 fingers of death. Not our 5 fingers, but just the 5 fingers. And then Matt,
AKA King Boxer.
Okay.
When you put in 5 fingers, it will come as King Boxer.
I'm glad you said that because I may not have known that. Hey, there's a dog around.
Yeah, there is a dog. Jimmy.
So then we'll also do our martial arts. Are you be prepared to do the martial arts wrap up? The
Sure.
Marathon Awards?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So we'll be doing that all next week. It's going to be a fun one. So as always, you can check us out at thefirstrun.com. Find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Am I forgetting one? YouTube. Scroll. Eventually you will find us. And go out to Apple Podcasts and give us a review. I know you're a big fan. And that's how other people, it helps them find us. You can also hear us on Stitcher and TuneIn too. Don't forget that. So let's take an extended break, Matt, and we'll see you soon.
You're all too weak to see the truth.
Well, I believe in truth. But I'm also a big fan of justice.